Appleton, so Scotty, I keep calling him Appleton, that's his last name. So Scotty ends up gaining Nino's trust.
Can I just say something about Appleton? Isn't that a lame name?
It is. Appleton seems just like very
undercover
Scotty
cop.
Appleton.
Appleton. It sounds like
super white.
Some Leave It to Beaver ass.
Sounds super. Scotty Appleton's a white dude.
Come on down to Scotty Appleton.
Hi, I'm Scotty Appleton from Appleton Ford. Come see me and get you a new truck today.
All right, I just want to clear that up because Appleton I thought was a soft ass name.
I'm in the same boat with you.
Right. G Money's cool.
G Money's dope.
Nick Peretti is cool. Scotty Appleton, not cool.
Not cool, man.
A winsome tale about the legendary American apple grower, Johnny Appleseed.
Howdy, everyone.
I mean, what the is this, man? What's up?
Big folks, and sometimes even animal folks, been calling me Johnny Appleseed.
Man, is up as I don't know you. That's what's up.
I ain't nobody to be afeared of, so rest easy.
Sit your $5 ass down before I make change.
Right out of this old sack. We got the best apple juice in town.
What are we gonna do, Johnny?
Start drinking, I guess.
Hey, what's cracking, you pop crackheads? Well, that's on brand for this week, baby. I'm coming in hot. Week 2, season 3, year 2. Welcome to the Just Play It podcast, the podcast where we watch classics, flops, and movies you've never heard of. I'm one of your hosts today. I am James.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back. Yeah, like James said, year 2, year of the corn. We're back into it. I'm Nick, and I'm excited for this week's movie.
I am Jimmy Crack Corn, and we will be cracking a lot of corn, and that's not the only crack that we're going to be cracking about.
We're coming up here on a crack-centric movie, James, and that is 1991's New Jack City.
New Jack City, baby! Right out the gates. Have you seen this before?
I have not, no.
What was your I have not either. What was your knowledge of this movie prior?
I knew it was a early 90s, like kind of crime lord, inner city, Wesley Snipes joint. That much I knew. That's all I had going into it.
Same with me. I knew it was in that 90s gangster movie, urban street realm of Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society. I knew this was like a New York one. So obviously South Central, Menace to Society, those are West Coast 90s gangster movies. And a watch that we did last year of Juice, not so much gang centric, but semi-gang related and kind of the hip hop
gang culture
centric. Yeah. 90s New York street movie. So that's basically the extent of my knowledge of New Jack City. And I know it's super famous and figured, hey, why not watch this for our podcast? Perfect opportunity.
Yeah.
Fun fact. We were supposed to watch this movie called What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams. Does someone ever say like, hey, you should watch this movie. It's really good. And then you're like, oh, okay. All right. Yeah, maybe. And then they do the power move of bringing the DVD to you and handing it off to you and saying, here, I brought it for you. Now you have no choice but to watch it. How do you feel about when someone does that?
I've had that happen to me once, and out of principle, I never watched it.
Can I ask what movie it was?
It was a movie called Dark City. It's like a cult phenomenon. I think it's like bad sci-fi cult phenomenon. I think I still have it somewhere in a box in a closet somewhere.
Yeah, no
Dark
thanks.
City. Yeah,
that happened to my wife. Her coworker said, "You got to watch this movie," and I figured, all right, I'll add it to our podcast slate, so at least I have a reason to watch it. I shut it off halfway through and thought, "F this. We're watching New Jack City week 2. We're starting out with bangers only. I'm sorry,
bangers only."
Speaking of New Jack City, so the title, what's the meaning of New Jack City? So what I found out was it's actually named after a subgenre of music. So New Jack Swing, sometimes called swing beat. It's this highly rhythmic R&B music. So think of the song Poison or I Want to Sex You Up, kind of Bobby Brown joints. And then the origin of the term New Jack Swing branches from this journalist writer, Barry Michael Cooper. He coined the term New Jack Swing in a late 1980s article profiling Teddy Riley, who was a R&B and hip hop music producer in New York's Village Voice. Cooper, who we obviously know as one of the screenwriters for this movie, he coins the phrase and he now introduces that phrase and the music subgenre to the mainstream in 1991. by filling this in for the title.
I think Barry Michael Cooper is like the hero of this movie because we'll discuss it later how he basically got Wesley Snipes and Ice-T involved in this project. He just sounds like a wild time, and I'm super here for it.
So with New Jack Swing being a term of, hey, this is the new style, this is upping the ante, this is representing change in the genre. I believe that's what they were going for with this movie. They were thinking, hey, this is not only a change in power, as we'll see in the actual plot, like this is the new world that we live in and this is how we run things, but also in the meta nature that this is a new type of movie because this is stemming from 70s, early 80s gangster movies, but we're bringing it with a different flavor.
And it's just a badass name. I mean, sometimes you just get points for coming up with a badass name.
Super sick name. So this movie is directed by Mario Van Peebles.
Van Peebles.
Couldn't stop saying the word Peebles all week. This is actually his feature film directorial debut. Kickstarted a long directing and acting career, which he's still doing today.
Good for Peebs.
Yeah, the Peebsness. This movie stars Wesley Snipes, Ice-T, as you touched upon, Alan Payne, and Chris Rock. Actually, I think this is Chris Rock's first feature film acting job. Same with Ice-T.
I knew for Ice-T. That surprised me about Chris Rock, but I believe it.
He was a parking valet in Beverly Hills Cop 2. And that was kind of, this is like his first feature
character with a name in the credits,
role.
Not Parking Attendant 2.
Yeah, because the one right before that is I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. And he played the rib joint customer. So I'm not counting that. So we're counting this role in New Jack City. Tell me about this budget we're looking at.
Yeah, so we ended up with a estimated budget around $8 million, just a little low. Again, this is 1991, so you're like we've seen higher for 1991. Worldwide box office around 47.6. So we get what is that? A 6x return on $8 million.
Okay, I'm gonna hit you with that log line.
Yeah,
a crime lord ascends to power and becomes megalomaniacal. Nick is going to read you this log line because I can't say that word.
Do you know what a megalomaniac is?
I know what a megalodon is.
Perfect. You're good. Just basically a power hungry kind of insane person. So, drunk on power. So a crime lord ascends to power and becomes megalomaniacal while a maverick police detective vows to stop him.
Cool. I'm in.
You know what's fun about that log line is that log line can describe like genres from the 60s all the way up through the 2000s. You're like, okay, we have a tale as old as time. Crime lord rising to power, maverick police detective to stop him. So that doesn't give away too much of the plot for me. So that's a good log line.
Tell me the bare bones and I'll look at the poster and I'll tell you if I want to watch it. And guess what? We want to watch it because we just played it this week. And now it's time to dive into New Jack, New Crack, Not Whack City, baby, in Plot Talk. Plot Talk. Okay, so we opened up on kind of your generic cityscape shots overlooking New York. I do want to point something out here. The very first thing we hear is something from NWA's Straight Outta Compton. It's Dr. Dre. He says, "You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge." And I thought we were going to get hit with that doom, like Straight Outta Compton beat.
No, we get
New Yorked. I'm a West Coast guy, so it was a little bit of a ew for me. However, we still jump into a banger. It is a song called "For the Love of Money" / "Living for the City" featuring Queen Latifah. So Queen Latifah is on the track.
She is. We have a bunch of voiceovers as well. That's just telling you kind of the state of the world, the state of America, poverty, crime, all that good stuff. I did catch one funny part on this voiceover there. Someone's like, the federal deficit's now at like a staggering $221 billion. And I'm like, dude, it's now over 500 billion. Like
that's nothing.
They probably thought, man, people are going to look back at this and realize how fucked up it was. It's like, nah, dude.
Like, well, we fucked up.
Keep going.
See how we evolve. The song is setting the mood. The voiceover is obviously explaining the world to us. This is real life 1980s New York. This movie is very hip hop centric. You know, we already know Ice-T. He's number 2 on the call sheet. We see in the credits that Fab Five Freddy is an associate producer.
Yep.
Flava Flav, he's going to make a couple cameos in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And producer Doug McHenry, he said that they set out to make an organized crime gangster movie on the hip hop tip, as they used to say back in the day, which I'm sure means laced with hip hop culture.
Sounds about right.
And producer Doug McHenry, he's saying that, yeah, we want to make the cameras and the cuts and the cinematography kind of emulate a hip hop music video. We're getting hit with some new flavor on the screen, and this opening shot actually zeroes in on a guy he's being dangling over that bridge. He's getting dangled.
First off, like, people are driving by the bridge, and this guy's just like getting shaken down by his ankles, like over the side of the bridge. And I'm like, all right, first shot. This city, New York City, New Jack City, lawless.
Yeah, no, it was cool though, because you're thinking, all right, here, the typical flyover shots, but this was done with a helicopter and a gyroscope on the camera on the gyroscope, so it's all balanced and it's not swaying. So they do fly over the city and then fly in towards the bridge, and we're brought in right in the action where I think is this a da-da-da man? Da-da-da man?
Da-da-da man?
I think it's da-da-da man holding this kind of banker looking guy. Apparently he is involved in the drug crime world. He's like a dealer or a customer. I don't know.
He looks well clothed though. You're like, huh, you look like an upstanding
he looks
citizen.
like a white collar criminal. So you're like, all right. And then Wesley Snipes pulls up, and then they just drop this fool into the water. Just murder his ass. So we're thinking, all right, New Jack City. This is.
I was
like
thinking,
said,
I'm like,
Nick,
is that murder?
lawless.
Is that murder? He could survive. It's water.
Well, talking about the voiceovers you brought up, they later say, and also an unidentified man was found floating unconscious. So I think he's pretty dead.
Floating unconscious ain't dead. Anyway,
he's dead, dude.
He's super dead. Oh man. So our first main protagonist I just couldn't remember words there for a second. We stumble upon.
Scrumble upon.
Let me just start that all over. So we kick things off after all that with meeting our main protagonist, Scotty Appleton, and this is played by Ice-T.
Yes.
For those who only know Ice-T from Law & Order SVU and his chops as an actor, I mean, this guy, mid-'80s, late 80s, early 90s, we're talking like one of the hottest rappers alive. Ice-T was a big deal in the underground rap community, kind of like really helped bring hip-hop mainstream.
Hell yeah. And this is Ice-T's first serious acting role, because he used to act in like music videos and whatnot. And did you actually look up how he landed the role?
I did.
Okay, so for the audience, so Ice-T lands this role actually by talking shit while taking a shit in a bathroom stall at a nightclub. He's in the stall, and some guy, I guess, is heckling him, maybe saying like, hey, hurry up or whatever. This is from Ice-T's mouth on the Howard Stern show. And Ice-T says verbatim,
and somebody's talking shit to me, and I'm just like, look, man, if they could put me under a microscope and find one molecule of me that gave a fuck, then maybe they could angle me. But they can't. So they can't fuck with me.
And Mario Van Peebles, the director of this movie, he is in this bathroom at this nightclub, and he starts cracking up and says, yo, whoever said that is the star of my movie. It's just incredible. And then Mario approaches Ice-T and says, hey, we should work together. Ice-T refers to this as that Hollywood bullshit. Like, yeah. You're just saying that right now because I'm right in front of you. All you want to do is talk to the girls I'm with, whatever. And he's like, no, seriously, call me. Ice-T calls Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers is like, yo, Mario wants you to read for this part. Ice-T says, this is not a part. This is the whole damn movie. Like, I'm the star. I don't act, dude. So we'll see if this is a story about Scotty Appleton, or if it's more so about antagonist Wesley Snipes, Nino Brown.
He also just didn't really think he wanted to do the role because he didn't want to play a cop. He was like, dude, I've built a lot of cred being like not cops, like fuck cops. And now you want me to come out here and play a cop?
But they're like, you're a cool cop.
Yeah, they're like, dude, you don't quite play by the rules, cop.
Speaking of Warner Brothers, Apparently, Clint Eastwood is to thank for getting this movie off the ground because he starred alongside Mario Van Peebles in, I believe it was Heartbreak Ridge, I think is the name of the movie. So apparently they became close, and Clint Eastwood allegedly convinced the higher ups at Warner Brothers to give Mario Van Peebles a shot at this movie because he was a first time director. You know, he was an actor before this, landing side roles and playing the funny guy and whatnot. But he was all about trying to get this movie made. And allegedly Clint Eastwood convinced Warner Brothers to make that happen.
Honestly, good on them for taking the chance on the Peebs.
The Peebsness.
You're giving him the reins to
new territory.
I mean, Wesley Snipes, who at this point, he's been in a few things, but isn't like as big a star. Chris Rock, brand new. Ice-T, you're like a rapper gone actor for the first time. Like there's a lot of unknowns and first time director. And they're like, yeah, I guess you could go for it.
Here's $8 million.
So we meet Scotty Appleton, Ice-T's character, and he's attempting to make a deal with a kid named Pookie. This is Chris Rock. So he's undercover and he's trying to buy some crack from Pookie.
And I gotta say, young Chris Rock, he's looking like Tyler, the Creator, especially in that scene when he's smoking crack and making like that, like, I don't want to do it face. It looks like a funny Tyler, the Creator face.
I'm just thinking about it, and you're right. It absolutely does.
Pookie ends up trying to punk Ice-T, Scotty Appleton, and wants to run away with the cash, kind of bust the deal. He has to spin the wheel.
Break the wheel, spin the deal, yeah.
The wheel he's spinning is on his bicycle. He steals a bike or hops on a bike, and there's this whole foot chase. Scotty Appleton eventually catches up to Pookie, shoots him in the leg. And where does he do this, Nick? In the best place possible, a playground for children.
Yes.
Yeah, and all that street to do that, and they decided to whip the gun out at the playground.
I also thought it was interesting to do that. This will come up later, but as an undercover cop, like you just blew your cover for like a low level crack dealer. Like everybody just saw what happens. Like they saw Pookie go down. As we find out, apparently the streets don't talk that well because Scotty's going to go back undercover. Totally fine.
Yeah, and one of Nino's guys literally sees him.
Yeah.
So we're like, all right, well, maybe that'll come up later. It will. So speaking of Nino Brown and his gang, you want to run through the gang real quick? And then I got something to say about Wesley Snipes entering the chat.
Obviously, Nino Brown. He's our head honcho. Then we got G Money.
This is Alan Payne,
which is his best friend since childhood. He's got his personal bodyguard, Da Man. It is spelled Da Man.
This is Bill Nunn. I recognize him as Radio Raheem from Do the Right Thing. And he is one of the Bugle people, a bugleman. He works for the Daily Bugle. It's Spider-Man, Sam Raimi.
Nice. We got Keisha, which is that G Money's cousin? She's I thought she's someone's cousin. I can't recall.
I don't know, but she's crazy.
She's insane. We got Nino's girlfriend, Selena, and Selena's tech-savvy cousin and ex-bank teller, Kareem, who will get introduced here in a bit. And he's going to run like the computer side of the business, the crack business, because we're in the early 90s. We're like computers. Like computers are now like everybody. You need a computer, man.
If you want to sell crack, you need a Mac.
Mac crack.
So Kareem is the one who is witnessing this bust of Pookie and Scotty blowing his cover. For Wesley Snipes, so he comes in, he enters the chat from Mario Van Peebles. He approaches Wesley for this role, and he kind of pitches this saying like, hey, you know, we've had similar experiences as black actors in the 80s, 90s. We're always being the funny black guy or the white guy's best friend, but you're not here for that. You're going to be our Black Pacino. And Snipes, he's like, all right, like, cool. Like, I'm going to take this seriously. So he does his research. He doesn't do drugs, but in this interview I saw with him, he said,
and then I went and hung out with places. You know, I had a couple of friends who did a couple of things, and they knew a couple of people. So they took me to watch a couple of people do a couple of things, sit down and talk with those people about a couple of things. And they showed me a couple of things. I was like, wow, the things that's going on, you know? And that's how I got my research.
He took the role seriously, and he's like, all right, you're going to gas me up and say I'm the second coming Al Pacino? Hell yeah. I'll believe it.
Did you read into his casting?
I just know that they wrote this role for him and they wanted him to play it. I think he wanted to originally play Scotty, but then they just said, no, like we wrote this Nino Brown character for you. But if you have more, please share.
Yeah, so going back to our boy co-writer Barry Michael Cooper, he wrote this after seeing him in Michael Jackson's Bad music video. I think he was there for like seeing him in the auditions, and he was like, this kid has it. I don't know what it is. So that was about 1986, 87. Barry Michael Cooper at that time said, I know what I want him for. And so he wrote this movie. Isn't that crazy?
That's so weird. And especially because I think before this, he was in Major League. He played Willie Mays Hayes.
Yep.
And again, it was like the funny kind of side character. So that's so, I mean, good for Wesley, getting pointed out in the crowd from the Bad music video.
Yeah. I mean, going to that audition, getting it, I think he beat out Prince for that role in the Bad music video. Like the amount of things that had to happen, it's just nuts to think about. But
that's so cool. We got Wesley Snipes. He's approaching the game seriously because Ice-T, like we said, he's a rapper, and Mario just wants him in this movie because he is from the streets and he's got the cool factor and he's funny. But this is Ice-T on Wesley Snipes.
He comes in, he got his script in a book that folds up and it zips and it opens, and he's got notes next to his shit he wrote down, and I'm like, should I have notes?
Snipes is an actor and Ice-T is a rapper, but he does double as a technical advisor, providing real life street hustler insight, because a lot of these guys weren't really from the street. So he kind of was like there on set, contributing to like, no one would say this, or like that's whack, or like that's not the right slang, or it would never go down like this. So what he lacks in maybe acting abilities at this point in his career, he's bringing other contributions to the table.
We talk about it all the time. Like, how many times does something happen in a movie where something happens with a car and you're like, all you needed was one mechanic on set? So they have Ice-T here and they're like, hey, we want this to be authentic. So you tell us how this would go down, or how this, would it sound, or how somebody would act. So it's smart.
Bring that authenticity to the game.
Yeah. So you could have him without having real crackheads on set.
Yeah, no, we don't want real crackheads on the set. That'd be crazy. We catch up with Nino and Man. They pick up G Money from the basketball courts. So this intro for G Money, we're learning, okay, this guy's a hustler. Nino Brown is the big shot. Man is kind of the dopey sidekick. He's driving them around in this open top Jeep Wrangler. And we're kind of sticking with tilted camera angles. And I'm like, please don't pull a Battlefield Earth on me right now, because that would be awful. We got swift camera pans. We got edit tricks. They're rolling down the street in the Wrangler. They got big gold chains and Kangol hats. There's a lot of Kangol hats in here. So if you're wondering, like, what's a Kangol hat? They're almost like berets.
The immediate thing I thought of with the style of how especially Nino dressed was like Black Panthers, like laced, like kind of like a Black Panther look.
And the Kangol hat, just think of Samuel L. Jackson and that hat he wears. That's a Kangol.
Now that's a Kangol.
And there's going to be a lot of Kangols in this movie. This movie has already set its own signature look in the first 10 minutes. We're getting hit with hip hop music and hip hop clothing, and we're doing tilted cameras, snazzy edits, but I feel like it doesn't carry on with I'll call it stylized cinematography. I feel like it kind of not digresses, but just falls into like kind of standard shots. I feel like they were really trying to make a statement in the first 10 minutes, but then they didn't want to distract you with like swooping cameras and tilted angles. It really was just in that first 10 minutes. What's your feelings towards the look of it?
I actually have that as part of my notes, where they almost went like, and I don't know if maybe Peebs had different feelings on different days when they shot different things and had different resources available to them. But there were definitely like chunks of the movie that were more stylized. Like some of the montage scenes that we'll see later are a little more stylized, a little more fade in, fade outs, things like that. And then, yeah, you'd have these long stretches of very standard storytelling. And then you'd randomly jump back into a more, especially some of the final fight scenes, a lot more quick cuts. It was not consistent though.
No. So I don't know if that was like beneficial because we didn't get Battlefield Earthed, where it was tilted camera angles the entire time, or if they should have stuck with some sort of consistent theme with their visuals and their look. But anywho, so we're carrying on with Nino Brown. He has his crew collected and he's going over his master plan. And he says this quote, Nick. He says, "You got to rob to get rich in the Reagan era." Now, do you have any like kind of thoughts on just this quote alone? Do you think this rings true? Is it false? Is it just from a biased opinion?
I think it's a fun little quip, especially knowing where Hollywood usually leans on the political end. So like it was probably a fun little like, "Hey, got him. We got Reagan.
We got him."
I get it. Yeah, right. It's like it's a nice little like not crowd pleaser line, but just like, yeah, I sympathize with that.
Do you think this had any validation?
No, for me, it just sounds like an excuse to do crime in any era.
This is how he opens his speech to his crew and says, "Hey, he literally says, we're going to bum rush the Carter, which is an apartment building." And funny enough, rapper Dwayne Michael Carter Jr., aka Lil Wayne, he got his album title from this movie. You know, his last name's Carter, but he did say on record, it's called the Carter because the Carter is like the mecca for Nino Brown and the gang. They're going to take this shit over. It's going to be their base of operations.
Well, on top of that, what's Nino's gangs called?
Cash Money Brothers? What, Cash Money Gang?
Cash Money Brothers. And what's Lil Wayne's?
Oh,
they're Cash Money Records. If you didn't know, Lil Wayne's a big fan of this movie and kind of the Nino Brown aesthetic and whatnot.
So Nino says, we're going to take the Carter. We're going to set up a lab. Their plans for the current tenants, they say, hey, they're going to either become addicted crack customers or they're just going to be living hostages. And he refers to Beirut. He says, hey, Kareem, tech nerd, you're going to set up computers. Again, computers. Keisha, crazy Keisha, and da man, they're going to be security. They're going to screen customers. They're going to ward off rival crews. And of course, look out for the 5-0. And he says, we will own this city. His only issue, though, is there's this guy named Fat Smitty who controls the brothers around the Carter. The scene ends with Nino saying, damn, crack. Whoa, snap. We in it. The crack epidemic.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, this is like the start of crack, right? Crack is just coming into these cities. And so he's trying to capitalize on it, take over this apartment building and like have a whole base of operation.
There's one sentence where someone says, that's crazy. And then at the end of it, everyone's like, that's genius. I'm in. Let's do it. Like, let's fucking
there's no real
let's
resistance
Shanghai
to the
this
plan.
apartment complex. I'm in, dude.
And Shanghai, they do.
So they pull up to the vicinity of the Carter and Fat Smitty's outside, who Nino earlier referred to as a curry goat eating skinny ass. And I was like, what the hell, man? Curry goat sounds pretty good.
I like curry goat.
And he's actually played by a Jamaican reggae musician named Eka Mouse. EEK-A-Mouse. So that's what we're dealing with.
Dead mouse is dead.
Yeah, no, they pull up and blast this fool in the dome. Rockabye baby, you're out.
Yeah, in front of everybody.
Lullaby.
In front of everybody. He just like pow. There's a lot of murdering in front of crowds.
And then they pull like the building manager, I think, out from the apartments.
Yeah.
They got him like butt naked in the street with a gun to his head saying like, you're going to let us just do this. You're going to let this happen.
Let this happen.
And then
damn, Fat Smitty did not have a crew because 7 people just came in and ran over his building.
They do end up taking the entire complex through this take by force filled montage with shootouts, drug deals, and fueled by an a cappella song. This is the song Living for the City, and they drop the line Living for the New Jack City. So this is telling me as a viewer, we're under new management. New Jack, new crack, baby.
New Carter.
The Carter one is in the building. The Carter one is the building.
So our song montage ends, and we time jump 3 years from 86 to 1989. So now Nino's been established. He is now becoming a crime lord. His base of operations is up and running. And then we jump to our friend Detective Stone. So he's Scotty's boss. He's Ice-T's boss. This is played by Van Peebles. This is the Peeps himself. And Detective Stone, he's the leader of these Cash Money Brothers police operations. So his whole task is taking down these sons of bitches.
And he says, I need a New Jack cop to take down a New Jack gangster. So we're like, all right, New Jack. Like we just got hit with the New Jack song. We got hit with this New Jack lingo. This is a pivotal point in the movie. This is a plot. This is a story beat dropping right now, hip hop style.
He's under pressure from the commissioner.
Classic.
The police commissioner, And Appleton, Scotty Appleton, he volunteers to infiltrate the gang. He's still in a little bit of trouble from basically shooting Pookie in a crowd of on a playground.
Shooty Pookie.
He eventually is allowed to have it, but he's going to get partnered with a super loose cannon cop, Nick Peretti.
Okay. Lots of stuff going on here. So let me talk about the task at hand, the commissioner. So the commissioner does call out how the system wasn't ready for this type of epidemic, which is reflecting how crack cocaine swept the nation throughout the 1980s. And then we're actually also introduced to this character of Old Man. He witnesses Nino bringing out that building manager buck naked, and he's played by Bill Cobbs, not Bill Cosby, but Bill Cobbs, even though his IMDb profile picture does look like kind of Bill Cosby. But I love this guy. Did you recognize this guy? I recognized him from one thing and one thing only, but he's been in a lot of stuff.
I swear, I looked at his IMDb. I couldn't identify him on a certain thing off the bat, but I knew his face the second I saw it.
Top tier facial recognition coming in. This is the janitor from Air Bud. You remember him?
How do you know that?
I don't, dude.
I couldn't even tell you what the janitor from Air Bud looks like.
He looked like that, the old man from New Jack City. I just remember because I loved the janitor character from Air Bud. I thought he was so cool. And this actor is awesome. But we're introduced to this old man, and he does come into the police station. He expresses more than reasonable concern for his community getting overrun by drug gangs, and he's criticizing the police for not doing anything about it. So whether this has anything to do with neglecting Black communities or being completely out of resources to just respond to this widespread crisis, or a combination of both, this movie's highlighting the real life tragedy of the crack epidemic that America faced in the 1980s. Very, very on topic and current for the time in 1991. Now, the loose cannon teaming up with Nick Peretti, we be troping at this point. We be troping. Now, I have a question. I see you have something to say, but is this a trope at this point in our sacred timeline, or is this standard practice for the 90s?
I think we're still in standard practice.
All right.
Like we're not troping yet, but like
I was like, we be troping hard right now.
but Detective Stone is basically saying all the tropes. Like, you guys don't play by the rules. You're loose cannons. Yeah. Like, I can't trust you. It's my ass on the line. Like, it's like everything.
Like, all right. Now, Nick Peretti, who's played by Judd Nelson. Did you recognize this guy?
No.
Okay. Not top tier facial recognition. Dude, my facial recognition takes a fat L on this one because this is freaking John Bender from The Breakfast Club, the bully.
No shit.
Yeah, I didn't recognize him.
Huh.
Fail. Super fail on my part, right?
Yeah, he's been in a lot of stuff.
So Nick Peretti, he kind of has this resting dick face. And I was like, where have I seen this resting dick face? It's because he has that same resting dick face as the rebel bully in Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
Dude, fail on my part. Judd Nelson, John Bender from The Breakfast Club. This is Nick Peretti. Nick Peretti, he also he makes a lot of passive aggressive racial comments and gestures. And he also fires off a pistol indoors with no warning.
That part I was like, this person should not be a police officer.
He really is a loose cannon.
Yeah, they really drummed like they didn't undersell his loose cannon abilities. I will say he does come in and just make like little, like they'll be talking about something or watching something or discussing like a crack deal, and it'll be a tense situation. He's like, what, is that a black thing?
Yeah.
You're like, whoa, Peretti.
He's like, because he's down with the brothers. Blah, blah. It's like, all right, man.
There's a lot of just like offhand, just good old fashioned like early 90s racial animosity going on. Like when they're talking about the Italian mob later, he's like, oh, I don't want that greasy mother. You're just like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, Nino says those spaghetti eating asses. And I'm like, he really has a lot to say about what people are eating. Because he calls the Jamaican guy goat curry eating, and he calls the Italian spaghetti ass eating. I'm like, this guy is judging cuisines a lot. I don't know what his beef is.
Spaghetti ass eating Guidos. You're like, whoa, man.
I don't know what his beef is, pun intended, because beef is food. wrap up my trilogy of facial recognition. So I got a fat W with Old Man. I got a fat L with Judd Nelson. However, this is unconfirmed, but there's a bouncer outside the club. And I swear to God that this is Vin Diesel. I cannot find any hard evidence. To look it up, dude. Fucking pull that shit up.
Whereabouts in the movie is it?
It's like when they first go to the first club.
Is it when Flavor Flav is there?
Flavor Flav. It's the first Flavor Flav cameo. All right, pause it. Yep, it's right here. So, Nick, I'm not trolling. Like, I honest to God think that Vin Diesel is an uncredited extra background bouncer because he was a bouncer for New York nightclubs back in the day. Okay, when the shot goes outside, pause it. Okay, so behind this red shirt guy, play it and pause it. Tell me that ain't Vin Diesel, dude. Tell me that's not Vin Diesel with hair. Can you zoom in?
Enhance.
Dude, look at that. That is him, 100%. How much more can you enhance?
That's my enhancing abilities.
I'm sorry. Like, is that not Vin Diesel? Is that not Dom Toretto?
I'm not going to say no.
I think that's him.
Is there no way to confirm this?
I was looking. The only thing I found was some other guy discovering this, and there's a TikTok video, and he's like, this has to be Vin Diesel. Look at him. But nothing confirms it.
Yeah, man. This is...
Just play it's calling it. Vin Diesel's outside the club. All right, so they be clubbing, and at this point in the movie, we are introduced to those spaghetti-eating bastards, the Italians.
Yeah.
The mob, I guess. They're also involved in the drug game.
Yeah, so this is the mob. We find out they think they helped make Nino, kind of helped him set up his whole empire, how to run it, kind of gave him safe passage, allowed him to kind of take over Harlem. This actually does parallel a real life Harlem heroin dealer who worked with the mob for a while. So not to get into it too much now, but it is kind of cool to see that like parallel throughout the movie. Like once I went back and read the real life account, I'm like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. They were able to sort of draw a lot from that. So yeah, so they're there to collect taxes because they're like, hey, we're letting you run stuff in our city. He refuses to pay. Nino's like, nah, I'm big shot now. I'm going to make this reference a few times because it goes back to a movie from all the way from season 1. But Nino's tasting the juice, James. He is getting some of that power. He's feeling real good about himself. He's juicing.
I also made a juice reference at a later scene, so I'm happy you brought that up. A lot of juice vibes here. Juice, the juice has never went anywhere. It's never left the earth. The juice is there, especially in New York City.
Oh yeah,
in the streets,
living there.
In Harlem, I think there's just the mythical Harlem juice is out there, man. Watch out.
Now Nino's trying to become a sort of man of the people, Robin Hood figure in his community. So he's handing out turkeys on Thanksgiving to the poor. So he's trying to help people out. Like, hey, I'm here. I'm not a bad guy. I'm here for the community. We're in this together. Have some turkey, have some crack.
As Scotty calls it, I'm not buying this Robin Hood bullshit.
A lot of bullshit.
He's trying to put on a positive image for himself, but he's evil, man.
While they're looking, they look down, and who's down there?
It's Pookie. Pookie, but he's a crack addict now. Wah, wah.
Oh, he is all cracked out.
It's not funny, but
Scotty feels really bad about this because after he shot him, and he's like, oh, this kid, he's all cracky now. And so, like, he goes out of his way. Scotty goes out of his way and puts him into rehab. There's this whole rehab montage where he's fighting
the movie just like changes for like a good 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, you're like, whoa, whatever. And so, but eventually it works. And the rehab, that is, not the crack. And
the crack works too.
The crack definitely works.
Crack always wins. Crack and juice, man.
As repayment, Pookie's going to be an informant for Scotty and Peretti to infiltrate Nino's gang.
I'm sure the commissioner loves this because he was already not on board with the two loose cannons teaming up. And now there's a crack addict in the mix.
Right? He's like, and it gets brought up later, like, our mistake was trusting you with a crackhead. But so what happens? Eventually, Pookie relapses. Tell me how you thought about this relapse scene, James, because it seemed really forced. Like the whole, like the reason he relapses. So they're going to bust. They're so close. They're finally going to bust Nino. And Pookie's going to go in there, and he has a wire on. And
also has a belt camera.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a second.
Very 90s.
Yeah, it looks like very like James Bond-esque. You're like, whoa, belt camera.
Go gadget belt camera.
They're all like walking on the shoreline, and Eventually, Scotty looks at him and he's like, "Don't let us down." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "Cause you owe us." He goes, "You owe a lot of people. You owe your community. You owe me. You owe yourself. You owe my dead mother.
You're doing a really good Ice-T impersonation.
You owe my dead mother who was murdered by a crackhead like you." And you're like, "Holy shit." And like this just like really tears him down. So he goes home and relapses back into crack. And you're like, what the fuck was that? First off, Scotty, why'd you just turn on him and get like all up in his grill? You just paid for it. You brought this man to rehab. He's working for it. You guys should be really excited. You should be encouraging him to like finish the job strong.
Well, now I can tell him how he really feels.
But he just hits him with like you owe us. Like, and Pookie's like, "Oh, I'm going to go home and do crack now." So whenever anybody's doing crack, there's like very weird angles, like from the corner of the room. And it's kind of like a fade in, fade out shot, or like an overlay. What are those called? When you kind of like fade into an overlay.
Superimpose.
Yeah. And it happens to a few characters when they're cracking.
Crack's a hell of a drug.
Yeah. It's like a distorted state of mind. So you get this like distorted shot. And he's all like sweating and his shirt's off. And he's just like, and he's doing his crack.
He's doing his crack.
The whole rehab informant relapse thing that happened in like 15 20 minutes.
It happened too quickly for sure.
Yeah. I thought it just felt a little forced.
So Pookie's acting all funny at work because he's getting high on his own supply. And G-Money, he realizes that he's wired. He's like, all right, well, time to kill his ass.
Hold on, you missed something good. He's acting all crazy, and they can like hear this all through the mic, the camera and the wire, and they're like, "Is that a call for help? Like, what's he doing?" And then Freddy's like, "Is that a black thing?" You're just like, Peretti,
come on, man. It's like, dude, can you relax, man? Someone check this guy's background. So they're like, we're gonna kill Pookie because he's a rat.
Now, usually if you're going to lose an informant, you're just like, damn, that sucks. No, the whole police force mobilizes and rushes the Carter.
This is the great raid of the Carter. They come in guns ablazing. I think someone has a hostage, and I believe it's Scotty with an automatic weapon. He shoots the person holding the hostage, which was very irresponsible because he's a loose cannon.
Yeah, he's big time loose cannon and still cares about Pookie, I guess. But when they find Pookie, the whole place is on fire, right? They're like, dang it, we've been compromised. Burn it down. Destroy the computers.
They took all the floppy disks.
All the floppies.
Floppies are out, man.
You know, all like 12 megabytes worth of floppies they're taken out of the computers. They set it on fire, and then they strap a bomb to Pookie's corpse, which seemed like overkill.
Now they must feel extra stupid going in for Pookie to save him.
And then you have, you just have to have a bomb diffusion scene.
Yep.
In the early 90s. And so Peretti, after a lot of stress, like tense, stressful, like we're down to 2 seconds, we finally defuse the bomb.
That's just 90s action movie flair there.
Yeah, have to have it.
There's a lot of things happening. Before we get to Pookie's funeral, Nino does confront his team in I'll call it the war room. And everyone is wearing black for some reason. Thematically, as a cinephile, I saw this as the funeral for the Carter. This was to represent the death of the Carter. So Nino's pissed. He stabs Kareem through the hand. Not long after he says to G-Money, "Sit your $5 ass down before I make change." There's a lot of good lines.
Good one-liners.
There's some great quotes in this movie.
A lot of good one-liners.
Later on, G-Money, he gets on that crack because it was this really weird scene. He marries himself to crack behind a fish tank.
He says like wedding vows to the crack.
"You are now husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." And then he smokes crack. And he's like by an aquarium.
And it's all done through a fish tank.
Yeah. And I was like, what the hell is the Peebs trying to tell me right now? I'm reading a lot into this. This is after the downfall of the Carter and previously losing his floozy to Nino's power and charm.
There's also a great scene here where Nino has a cane, like a pimp cane, and it actually pulls out to like a sword, like out of a sheath.
Yeah, that's what he stabs Kareem with.
And this for me was another Juice moment, right? Like he's kind of starting to become unhinged.
Yep.
Hurting those around him, people around him, like really starting to become like scary and psychotic. And you're like, okay,
Bishop.
So we're at Pookie's funeral, which This will be part of my nitpicks.
This is if we hit all is lost plot point. I was thinking this is the other guy's pacing and beats. This is the other guy's movie. Like Scotty is Terry and Nick Peretti is Alan. And they're like the two cops that don't belong together. They got paired up by the commissioner, the detective.
Stone is Michael Keaton.
And now they're at the point where they lost the mission and they kind of split up. And then Mark Wahlberg goes to be a traffic cop and Alan goes back to just pushing paper. And then they have this like, we fucked up. We lost the case. And then of course they all come back together and they say, oh, the police department's not going to back this up. We're going to go in rogue and do it ourselves. And then so at this point, like for no reason, Peretti just all of a sudden just stops being a brash dick after Pookie dies.
He's still brash, but not as much. Not as like racially motivated.
Yeah, no, he dropped the racial stuff, I think. I don't know. I think Peretti's racist. Appleton and Peretti, they kind of just like mend their differences, but they're like, yo, we're going to do this. We're going to go undercover.
This funeral scene also, I'll bring it up more in nitpicks, for our second week in a row after Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they just walk around in plain sight. If you're going to go undercover to this gang, you don't go to Pookie's funeral. Like they're constantly out with Pookie. They're constantly walking around with with the police commissioner. And it's like
thought about
anybody with two eyes would have seen you and be like, okay, I've tagged this guy.
Yeah, on one side, yes, someone should be monitoring potential cops, but regardless, I feel like you would have eyes on like people watching you, and you would just be careful. Now, on the flip side, G Money does say like we have 300 employees or whatever. I can't keep my eye on every single one of them when he's questioning about how Pookie slipped in. But yeah, I had the same thought.
But then one of those employees would have been to Pookie's funeral and would have been like, all right, I've seen that guy. That's a cop.
Yeah.
They're very just like out in the open all the time. And I'm like, I feel like if I was undercover, I wouldn't be like out on the city streets with my informants.
Yeah.
Scotty's going to go to Frankie. That's our Italians. He's going to bribe him and that he's going to help him infiltrate the CMB, the Cash Money Boys.
Cash Money Records.
By becoming a drug dealer. So he's going to have the crack and he's going to basically approach Nino and say, let's do business. G Money kind of vouches for him. But Nino's basically like, if this guy's not who he says he is, I'm going to kill him. And I'm also going to kill you, G Money.
He's not about this bullshit after the Pookie incident. And Nino does quote, drop a line. He says, hey, this shit's always business. It's never personal. And then we learn later with a scene between Scotty and Nino that Nino's gang initiation into this drug dealing world that he's in.
His first,
he had to go bust a cap in somebody. And they're like, it can't be an enemy of ours. That's too easy. It just has to be a rando. And then as soon as he said that, I was like, of course, Nino capped Scotty's mom.
Killed his mom.
Of course.
And Scotty keeps it cool. So he goes like, so it wasn't personal. And he goes, nah, nothing's ever personal.
It's all just business. They don't confirm it here, but we know it's like, all right, so you killed Scotty's mom and just by chance, like he's now the guy hunting you down. Like, again, we be troping, but maybe it's too early to be troping. I don't know.
We troping. So Scotty's gaining Nino's trust through like a whole bunch of different things. He's starting to sow seeds of distrust between him and G Money about like, yeah, G Money's trying to cut you out, trying to create a back deal with me. Saves Nino from our old man from earlier, from outside of the Carter.
He's out to get Nino. He comes in and he's like, get your ass out of this room, you young kids. This man's a devil.
And Nino's handing out money to the kids, trying to like gain all their trust. And old man is not having it.
He pulls out a pistol, but then Scotty, undercover, acting like, an associate, a muscle, he actually puts old man, I don't know if it's a chokehold. I think he just kind of restrains him.
Yeah.
And prevents him from shooting Nino. Drop a pin in that right now.
So next scene we have, so we're like, okay, so now that we kind of have this trust building exercise going on, and we are at a wedding that the whole CMB crew attends along with Scotty. Peretti sneaks into Nino's mansion to get the evidence. Now, the big thing that happens at the wedding is some of the Italians there, Don Armateo, sends hitmen to kill Nino, and a massive shootout happens at this wedding. Let me say this. These hitmen suck because If anybody wanted to kill Nino, he's out in the open all the time. Anybody could have killed him the same way they killed Fat Smitty. He's just out in the basketball courts all the time. You can just walk up, just pop, pop, pop.
That's a good point to bring up because they make a point like when they kill Fat Smitty, they say that's how you cap a mother.
Now that's how you kill somebody, my brother. You get right up on the motherfucker and bam! Throw his brains all over the sidewalk in broad daylight.
Rock the block, baby.
And then no one's doing that to Nino, even though a bunch of people want to do it to him.
Yeah, so that was a little confusing to me.
Although old man tried to do it, but he's just too old.
Yeah, old man if he was a little sneakier, he could have got his shot off.
Yeah.
Nino's a big piece of shit because during this shootout, he holds up a little girl as like a human shield.
Wait, are you saying he's a candidate for biggest piece of shit at the end of the year?
Yes. Oh yeah, he's going to be a high seed.
The bracket is building, ladies and gentlemen, already.
Scotty saves the girl, and during the shootout with all of the mobsters, there's a point where Scotty like points his gun at the back of Nino's head. He wants to pull the trigger so bad, but he doesn't. You could tell there's a whole part of Scotty that wants to take the law into his own hands.
And this is after he learned that he killed his mom. So
yeah,
it was like a whole temptation, thing going on, variable in the mix.
It's almost like a Batman code. He's like, oh, if I kill him, I'm just as bad as the criminals. Like this, I have to keep this line.
Keep the moral code.
Keisha gets killed in the shootout because she's on the front line, just like ripping bullets at these mobsters. No cover. She's just on the steps.
Everybody has Uzis. This movie is riddled with Uzis.
A lot of Uzis.
What are Uzis? They're pistol machine guns, if you guys don't know. You never played Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. So later on, Nino is like, yo, I just got hit. And he throws Selena out. This is his girlfriend.
Because he's been banging other chicks. He's the juice. He's consumed by the juice.
He's banging that lime-eating ass hoe. And I call her a lime-eating ass hoe because in the club, when she was looking at Nino all sultry, she was like eating a lime. Did you see that? She's like eating a lime wedge, like eating it.
She loves limes.
It's like this chick is psycho, dude.
She ain't gonna get scurvy, that's for sure.
Yar, do not engage this lime-eating ass trick. So he throws Selena out, and he hits us with a pretty great line. Not a line I would say to anybody, to any person ever. But he says, I think he pours champagne on her and says, cancel that bitch. I'll buy another one.
Yeah, he like pushes her over the desk and then pours champagne on her. You're just like, dude.
I'm sure every misogynist was like, hell yeah, that's my new pickup line.
Cancel that bitch. I'll buy another one.
It was hilarious.
You should only say that about cars, not women.
Yes. Don Armateo actually calls in. He's like, yeah, you see, you fuck with me. Like, we're the Italian mob, bitch. He hangs up on this fool. Nino claps back hella fast. The Don is dead in the very next scene. Seriously, Nino wastes zero time doing this because Don Armateo, he hangs up on Nino, and the very next cut is a crotch rocket speeding down the street, doing a drive-by on the mob. The Don is dead. That takes care of the Italians. Bada bang, bada boom.
Again, apparently it's really easy.
Like they're dead. They're super dead.
It's easy to kill people out in the open.
Yeah. No. It's just, like the Italian storyline is wrapped up. Bye.
Yep. But now it's time for the big sting. It's finally time. So Stone, Scotty, and Peretti, they arrange a sting to nab Nino. They also have the all of his financial records. They stole the floppy disk during the wedding. Unfortunately, there's not enough evidence on there to grab Nino. And they're like, we need to just catch him in the act. So they're like, boom, we're going to set up the buy. Halfway through this buy, Kareem recognizes Scotty from the opening scene when he shot Pookie. He's like, now I remember that guy.
Now I get it.
The whole time he's like, he looks familiar. Finally, he's like, he's 5-0. In this movie, all it takes is one accusation and everyone flies off the rails. Scotty should have been like, whoa, what are you talking about, dude? Didn't have time to explain himself. It was just like shootout time.
Shootout time, yeah.
And so there's this big shootout. This is where we kind of get back to the stylized quick cuts, how we started the movie. And there's this fight between Peretti and Da-Da-Da Man.
Yeah, they're like up on a catwalk kind of stair.
It's in
like
a warehouse. It's a warehouse state.
Yeah, this is like a big warehouse. So like the second story is just open air. So there's stairways up to catwalks and higher platforms. And they're kind of struggling on the guardrail. And the Da-Da Man is hanging onto Peretti, and Peretti's hanging onto the handrail, so preventing both of them from falling. Scotty caps Da-Da Man, And da man falls down to the ground, smacks his back, and then we get like another kind of action movie trope of Nick Peretti going, oh, and then he falls down like, what a relief. That was crazy. Then da man like wakes up, and luckily there's a random Uzi on the ground right next to him, and he goes to reach for it, and then Peretti gives us a good old no scream. So another trope. He pops off on da man. They call it da man because he stutters, and I thought it was funny that he actually stuttered on the trigger as he got shot. He was like, I was like, that's kind of funny. He stutters the trigger, shooting it as he gets shot by Peretti. And then Peretti and Scotty, they give each other a look like, I got your back, partner. Like, you saved my ass, I saved yours.
Troping.
We be troping.
But Nino does escape. And that night, we get a scene between Nino and G Money. Now,
as soon as I saw this guy,
on,
as soon as I saw this outfit, I saw the meme coming.
As soon as I turned this on, I was like, is this the movie the meme's from?
This is the meme movie.
And I was waiting for it, but I'm like, he hasn't been dressed like that yet. He hasn't worn like a hat like that all movie. That doesn't seem like his outfit. And then this
is like a fedora, or is like a bowler hat? No, it's like a fedora, I think.
Fedora. Yeah, more fedora. And I'm just like...
As soon as I saw the costume, I was like, meme time.
So they have this emotional talk. G Money's like, dude, just like, let's leave this all behind. Let's go be best friends again. Let's go start over. Let's go back to the way things were. And Nino's just too deep. He's too deep in it. And he kills G Money.
I want to talk about why this went down. So we could talk about it now, or we could talk about it after.
Let's get into it now. We're going to have to go over it eventually.
So I was wondering, why did he kill G Money? And this is Snipes' take on the scene. He said, basically, he's killing a part of himself that failed. He's on the run, and he's thinking if we keep running, G Money is just going to end up being left to the wolves anyway. So he had to do him. So after watching the scene, I was like, why do you have to cap G Money? Is it because he like fucked up, or like he's back on that crack, or everyone else is dead? It's just poetic justice to just cap him. So after kind of hearing this take from Wesley Snipes, it got me thinking, all right, so this conflict is kind of boiling down to an all for one versus a one for all ideology. Throughout the movie, the Cash Money Gang has preached, I am my brother's keeper. However, they act very selfishly, and Nino is the worst offender of this.
Yes.
So I think he knows this deep down in his heart. So the killing of G represents the business side of the game, void of emotions. Like, this is what I have to do to keep on this life of crime that I've chosen. And then the tears in his eyes, they say, I love you. Was this perhaps like a killing of mercy for the potential path that they were going down? Because G Money, he was kind of on a downward spiral. He was smoking that crack. The very last thing that they say to each other, G Money says, he's on his knees. He's got the gun pointed to him, and he says, am I my brother's keeper? And Nino says, yes, I am. And then pop, dead. Was this Nino saying, like, I fucked up and I led you down the wrong path, and just, I'm a mercy kill you right now? Or what'd you think?
I think this is the opposite of what we saw in Juice, where like the character of Nino truly is irredeemable. Like, he's gone so far down this road that there's no coming back from it. And he has to, kind of like what you said, kind of like kill that part of him, like that last final part of him that still exists. Because he does talk about a lot of times, you know, it's business, it's not personal, but a lot of stuff he does is personal. A lot of stuff like stealing G Money's girl, the way he treats people, the way he manipulates people is all very personal. This was almost like a business decision where he had to force himself to actually make it not personal. And that's why, to me, that's why he was crying, because it was personal, even though he didn't want it to be. But yeah, I think this was just him becoming kind of like that fully irredeemable character. Because up to this point, we kind of liked Nino. I mean, as bad a piece of shit as he was, like through the movie, like this is kind of your main character.
It's a good
right?
villain.
You're following him. Yeah,
you're captivated by what's happening. You're like, this guy's terrible, but I want to see what happens next.
You're like, can anything save him? Can his best friend pleading to him save him? And then like this scene gives us our answer of no. Like he truly is 100% lost in the juice, lost in the New Jack. He got New Jacked on the juice. And to me, yeah, this was because the way the rest of the movie plays out, he still shows no remorse after this. Really, for anything he's done.
This is the only scene where we see a flash of humanity in him.
Yeah.
I think the scene was very, very necessary.
Very good scene. Very good scene of the movie.
And the scene actually, this scene wraps up with Wesley Snipes, Nino Brown. He has tears in his eyes and almost looks like he was ready to off himself as he raises the gun towards his head. Did you catch this?
A little bit, yeah. Like a very conflicted, like.
So he shoots G, and then he's like staring at him, watery eyed, and then he puts the gun up, not completely to his head, but not straight up and down, not vertical. It's kind of a skewed towards his head, but then he kind of brings it away. He's like, I'm not gonna take the personal, emotional, easy way out right now. I'm gonna keep on this party, this crack train. Let's keep the crack train rolling, baby.
Keep the crack train rolling.
Put the crack coals in. Keep the balls to the wall.
And again, he's too much of a sociopath to do that, right? Like he can't. So yeah, it was a really good scene. Now Nino's held up in a kind of like a crack apartment. I guess it's kind of a massive apartment. He's still trying to run his empire by himself at this point in the game.
It's a startup now again.
Scotty and Peretti, they assault the complex. Scotty, he comes in through the window, right?
Yeah. And Peretti, he was camping up on like a pipe on like a second story. And he's like, hey, tough guy or whatever. Or maybe he says something racist.
Yo, buckwheat.
But then he like shoots the security guard of Nino. And then they nab Nino. They got this bitch.
Yeah, and they get into a bare knuckle beatdown brawl where Ice-T just whoops the shit, like tosses him off the second story fire escape into like some trash cans, jumps down, and then like in front of the whole neighborhood, and the neighborhood's like watching this, cheering it on, and it's like a very cathartic beatdown. He's like getting embarrassed in front of his community. He's getting whooped by the cops. Like he's lost everything. And Ice-T like pulls out his gun and he wants to kill him. Peretti and Stone are like, don't do it. Not like this. He can't end it like this.
So I thought the $5 line was going to be the best quote of the movie. And then I thought the cancel this bitch was going to be the best line in this movie. Nick, we get hit with the best line in this movie. And Ice-T does not really sell it too great because he's not an actor. But he says, I want to shoot you so bad. My dick's hard. I was like, what? What? I was like, I'm cracking up at this, dude. Like, who thought of that?
I'm gonna shoot you so bad, my dick's hard.
So yeah, I thought the canceled bitch line was good, but no, this is now the best line in the movie. And so, but on the flip side, I thought shooting Nino was kind of like Scotty's version of crack drug temptation. So we saw earlier Pookie was about to and he was really struggling with like pulling the crack pipe up to his mouth, and he knew he shouldn't do it. This is that same, like, I got to fight this and be the better person. I got to take the moral high ground here. So this was like his version of temptation in the movie that we've been seeing with Pookie and crack addiction.
So this scene's basically a mirror image of the last scene we saw with Nino, where he has the ability to shoot a defenseless G-Money and he takes the shot because he's a psychopath. And then here's Scotty with the ability to shoot a defenseless Nino, and he has a lot more reasons to do it, and he still holds back. And it's kind of what separates these two characters.
The mirror image is actually good because thinking about it, Nino was on the right side of the screen, pointing the gun towards the left, and I believe Scotty was on the left side, pointing the gun to the right. Nino is on a rooftop at night. Scotty's in the street level in the daylight. So actually, yeah, very like stark contrast between the scenes and the character choices. Not sure if the Peeps was planning that, but I'll give the Peeps credit there.
There's quite a few scenes where those two characters have a lot of like similar choices to make, and sometimes they make the same choice and sometimes they make different choices. And so like it's really a compare and contrast these two characters.
And Scotty ultimately does not give in, and he does not let the vengefulness flow through him. He does not get a sip of that juice. So this is where I brought up my juice reference. This is the road averted, not taken.
Yes.
He's like, I am not about to delve into my selfishness and what I want to do and pop this fool just because it would feel good, he puts that can of juice down.
He's not juicing.
And lets the American justice system take control, which fucks up in this next scene.
So we're at Nino's trial. So our next
super fast, already in a trial.
Yeah, we're in a trial, and this is going to be our last scene here. Nino ends up pleading guilty to a lesser charge. He gives this speech about like, I'm not the bad guy. The American system's the bad guy. He takes this wild libertarian stance on like legalizing drugs. He's like, you made crack illegal. How's that my problem? Kind of thing. You're like,
all right, that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, you have a bad lawyer who's letting you up here give this diatribe, but all right.
Did you see his lawyer? He had like a long ponytail.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of like those memes that said, if your lawyer looks like this, you're going to jail.
You're going straight to jail.
Which he kind of does.
Looks like a billboard lawyer.
Like, I'll get you out scot-free. And if I don't, it's free.
So yeah, he gives all these excuses and then ends up pegging Kareem as the leader. He's like, I wasn't the leader. Kareem was.
Nino hates Kareem. He hates this guy. He's like,
after he stabs him in the hand, he like looks at him and goes, never liked you anyway.
Yeah.
You're just like, whoa.
Nino is Michael Scott and Kareem is his Toby from The Office. He hates Kareem.
Great, yeah.
So like,
does not like it.
He's pissed off, and G Money is the one talking smack in that war room scene. He just takes it out on Kareem. He just stabs Kareem through the hand and says, "I never liked you anyway, pretty boy."
Kareem did his job. He saved all the floppy disks and like kept all the. He handled his business really well.
There's something else going on here. Nino hates this fool. And then in the courtroom, it comes out of nowhere to everybody, to the people in the courtroom, to us, the viewers watching the movie, because Nino's preaching about, oh, this is systematic. Like, this is the only way to endure and survive. This ain't my fault. The real bad guy's that guy right there, Kareem. And Kareem is like, what are you talking about?
So he's just like in the audience of the court. So I'm sitting here. I'm like, why is he in like just sitting here in court? He should either be in custody.
He should be on the run.
He was at the scene of like the sting operation, right? He recognized
he's involved.
Scotty.
He's involved.
He's super involved.
Why would he be
just
there?
sitting there? He should either be in custody or he should be like 5 states east or west by now. He should be down in Colombia.
He's 5 states east. He'd be in the Atlantic Ocean.
He should be off the grid, dude. He should be on the run. I don't know why he's just sitting in this courtroom.
Talk about in plain sight. So when Nino's only sentenced to a year in jail, Appleton is outraged and he stands up, but he's like, I should have killed you when I had the chance. And then Nino's like, hey, this is the American court system. It's great. Like, look at me go. I'm only getting a year.
Apparently you just accused randos in the audience.
And they could just get arrested on the spot. Nino's speaking with reporters outside the courtroom. And then here comes Bill Cobbs, my favorite guy in this movie. He comes in, the old man, confronts Nino. Earlier he said, you reap what you sow. And then I think at this scene he says, hell requires your spirit or something like that.
Yeah, he calls him an idolater. Like he's idolizing money and power. So he's like,
Yeah.
idolater, pulls out his gun and just
Shoots
rips
Nino.
Nino through the chest.
And this is a contrast to when he originally tried to do this because Scotty was undercover, so he put him in a chokehold. However, now Scotty's feeling like, I want to kill this fool. And he's right next to the old man in the stairwell. And the old man brings out the gun and Scotty's a cop and he literally sees this and does not stop it.
Nope.
He's like, I'm going to let the streets take the justice here because this is what's right. A little bit of a juxtaposition there. Did you see Peretti? Peretti's just smiling after the old man murders Nino. Peretti's like, it looks like someone said, hey, everybody, take the rest of the day off, and here's a 6-pack on me.
Free ice cream downstairs.
Sick. He's like, well, that's cool how that worked out.
Peretti's kind of fucked up, dude. Then our epilogue is just words on a screen, James.
We do end on a title card that says, although fictional, there are Nino Browns in every major city in America. If we don't confront the problem realistically without empty slogans and promises, then drugs will continue to destroy our country. Now, I do have a talking point about this, but that is plot talk for New Jack City.
Boom.
Nick, do you have a nitpick for New Jack City?
Nitpicks.
I'm trying to find one that I didn't bring up, but yeah, a lot of hiding in plain sight. I feel like if you're undercover, you can't just be out and about, like talking with other cops, talking with your informants. You're going to get people killed.
I highlighted it for my nitpicks. A lot of it is just the general tropes
Yep.
And I think we're going to give this a pass just from being from 1991. This is in the standard issue era and not the we should know better era, but just the loose cannon cops getting paired together. They felt the need to include a cut the wire on the bomb scene, all the slow motion shootouts, and that like you saved my ass back there kind of mutual respect head nod between Scotty and Peretti. It's what it comes with the territory.
Yeah.
However, a big nitpick I have is that goddamn belt camera that Pookie was wearing.
Thank you. I had a huge issue with this
because it was just super unrealistic because the belt, the camera is on where like a belt buckle would be. So obviously wherever your hips, your waist is swinging, like I'll tell you this, majority, that camera is going to be pointed down and swinging 30 degrees left and right. What does this camera do? It is perfectly handheld, focused on individuals talking and giving away evidence at every corner.
My biggest issue was when G Money catches him, they like bust open his shirt to find like the mic wire, and the belt camera point of view is like G Money's face looking at his chest. Because if it was he was looking at the belt, he would be down at dick level going like, like I understand you can't be showing the belt camera footage of that happening because the camera footage, even like the camera they're watching, shows like buttons being ripped open from a shirt.
I think that is the top tier nitpick of this movie. That's
my biggest nitpick.
The belt camera. A small one is a couple lighting things. There's a random blue spotlight in the warehouse shootout, strictly there for cool lighting. Like this is super unnatural. It's not there naturally. It's just a spotlight.
It's daytime out. Yeah.
It's just to cast a blue light onto Ice-T as he has a gun drawn and it's like it's supposed to be a tense scene. So there's a lot of like just random red and blue lights in that warehouse to make it look cool. Also during the Nino apartment bust, this scene cannot decide if this is day, night, or dawn because
I noticed this
they bust in when it's night. There's like a really quick 3-second, the sun's coming out shot because they filmed the rest of it in daylight. So the interior is all night work and they bust out the window and it is just high noon in the middle of the day out of nowhere.
I noticed that.
So let's get into some talking points here. So I want to talk about the cultural impact of this movie. So countless rap albums, Nino shout outs and rap songs. This movie has been iconic. It's been a staple in hip hop culture. It had a lot of life after its initial release. This was emulating the Scarface, the Godfathers, but I really didn't feel like it needed to. I feel like it was just good being its own thing.
I would agree with that. It's funny you bring up like Scarface and Godfather because similar to Juice, Tupac's character was watching White Heat and like kind of emulating that. Scarface is playing a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
And they reference Scarface and like, you're not going to go out like Scarface. There's a point where like the Scarface death scene, it's like he's in a projector room. He has like a home theater with a projector and he stands up and the scene's actually playing like across his black shirt, like the Scarface death scene. Really cool piece of cinematography there. But yeah, definitely like unabashedly takes inspiration from that. Why wouldn't you? They're very culturally significant things. I do want to say I was doing some research and Nino's character is actually based off a real life person named Nicky Barnes, who sold heroin in Harlem, like in the 70s, and built an empire. He didn't have a Cash Money Boys, but he had a gang called the Council, all African-American kind of like mob. He was actually in prison and learned how to build an empire from mobsters. So like very similar kind of path that Nino took in the movie. So you could tell like it was inspired and they actually like alluded to it, kind of gave an homage to it. Nicky Barnes, the real life character's name was Mr. Untouchable because they just couldn't get him on anything. And at a certain point when they're trying to get him after they collected the evidence, the DA says like, I can't get him on any of this. He's becoming Mr. Untouchable.
Nice.
So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Huge similarities there. What I looked up was that this was based off the real life drug gang known as the Chambers Brothers, who purchased the Broadmoor, which is a 52 unit apartment building in Detroit, as their base of operation for pushing crack cocaine. Like we said, this movie was showcasing a real life tragedy in America, the crack epidemic in the 1980s, especially in low income neighborhoods, Black communities. And so they're taking bits and pieces of real life, the Chambers brothers, like their operation, the status of Nicky Barnes, they're combining it into a Nino Brown. And that's why the movie ends with there's Nino Browns all over the place. We got to face this problem head on.
Yeah. I also thought Nino Brown, Nicky Barnes, kind of like the same initials. I was like, interesting. And then Chambers Brothers, Cash Money Brothers.
Yeah,
like,
right. Yeah, there's a lot of like kind of illusions.
Well, it's kind of crazy too, because you're like, okay, this is clearly not based on a true story. Like, this would be crazy. And then you read these stories, you're like, no, this kind of happened.
This is it,
like,
yeah.
In some way, shape, or form, whether it was obviously not as stylized, but I mean, this was happening. Cracking, people taking over whole apartment buildings, making it a crack base.
Exploiting the entire tragedy of this. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So this movie is very iconic. Career-changing factors coming into play. Did you know that Martin Lawrence originally was in line to play Poogie?
No.
So apparently he killed the audition. However, at the time, his mentor, Robin Harris, passed away in March of 1990. So Martin was not in the right headspace to carry on with this project. So they defaulted this to Chris Rock. And after this movie came out, Chris Rock, it was his first like kind of major role, serious acting role. And when he would go, he was a comedian. So when he would go on comedy tours, drug dealers in all the towns would slip him drugs and say, "This is for you, Pookie." And Chris Rock is like, "Thanks, but I don't do drugs. I don't want this." Funny enough, later on, Lawrence would pay homage to New Jack City by doing a parody of that "Sit Your $5 ass down" scene with the all black clothing on his show Martin, because I think the plot point in the show Martin is his CD player is missing. So he sits everybody down in like kind of like the dining room. And then one character says, "Why are we all wearing black?" And he's like, "I'm trying to set the mood." And then he quotes the $5 quote. And you're just like, that's cool.
That's awesome.
You're almost in that movie. And then you shout it out. That's cool. But like I said, this movie did become its own thing. And it was just such a cultural phenomenon at this point. It would kind of draw in different audiences. And unfortunately, there was a little bit of controversy during the release of this movie, because there was a few violent incidents between gangs at these showings. Coincidentally, this movie actually came out 5 days after the Rodney King beating. So this is like America's climate. This movie comes out with hot topics and relevant criticism of the justice system and police. So I can only imagine back in 1991, huge swing of things.
Oh, yeah.
But this is a Nino Brown centric movie. So what's the takeaway here? I want to talk about the Wesley Snipes, his acting job. So like we said, this was literally written for Snipes. Van Peebles wanted Wesley to do it. And this is Chris Rock on the situation. He said,
"We had no idea who he was, to tell you the truth. He wasn't, like, Wesley was the least famous guy on the set at the time. So we sit down for that first read-through, and Wesley Snipes reads his part, and then you kind of realize, oh shit, we're gonna be in a hit. Barry Bonds is here. We might win the pennant." As soon as I saw that guy reading, I was like, oh, this guy's for real.
What'd you think about Wesley Snipes acting?
I thought he did great. You could tell he was a little bit younger, a little hungrier. What they were saying about like the books and the notes and
prep work.
He
was taking it seriously.
Yeah. Not that I've ever thought Wesley Snipes is a bad actor, but like last season when we watched Blade, we saw that the character wasn't written well.
Very one-dimensional acting.
There's only so much you could do with it. So like this movie definitely was written for him, similar to a movie he came out with later, Demolition Man, written kind of in a similar part. And for me, people talk about like, oh, you end up getting typecasted all the time for like certain roles. And it's like, I don't know, if that's what you excel at and that's what you're good at, like, then do that.
So with this being like a Nino Brown centric movie, that ending title card has me thinking, is this title card telling Americans to take matters into their own hands and shoot drug dealers? Nick.
It kind of made it seem that way, like vigilante. Like, so, be a vigilante.
We need to be the old man and become ungovernable.
Yes. Although I think it is interesting. So I had something else to say about this, and it's kind of about like the end of Nino, right? Because up to this point, a lot of movies like this, The Godfather, Scarface, which you referenced, they really glorify Scarface and they glorify drug lords and the crime bosses. And even, going back to Juice with White Heat, like they were emulating that character, right? Wanting to go out in a blaze of glory. And they keep bringing up Scarface a lot in the movie. Like, you're not going to go out like that. Like, you're not going to be dumb, go out like a punk kind of thing. At the end of the movie, it almost makes it look like he's going to go out in a blaze of glory, right? Like, he's going to go out like a legend and a hero. And at the end, his death becomes really anticlimactic. And I think that was purposefully done to like not glorify that, because with that title card being like, hey, like there's a lot of these guys and it's not glorious and you're not going to get a lot of fame and credibility. Like, you're just going to die. Like, someone's going to shoot you. You're not going to get, your own movie made about you. I mean, this guy, obviously Nino Brown did, but I think that was like the way he went out was like purposefully anticlimactic, especially after like getting his ass embarrassed by Scotty, like getting beat up, tossed out. He had nothing left, shot his best friend, life fell apart. And then a community member shot him in the chest. And it's like, yeah, he went out like a bitch at the end.
Like, play stupid games, you win stupid prizes, man.
The other thing I want to talk about, I brought it up a little bit, but there's a very clear dichotomy between Nino and Scotty. So they both emerged from the same environment, right? Like, Scotty's backstory, mom killed, grew up by himself on the streets. And then Nino, from what we could tell, had a very similar upbringing.
Fell into the wrong hands and was taken care of by the wrong people, and they led him into this drug dealing life.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things they do similarly. Scotty even, he used Pookie to get what he wanted and ended up getting Pookie killed. Nino uses people to get what he wants, ends up getting people killed. So there's this little like push and pull between the two characters. And then, as we talked about in the end, they both have chances to make decisions. Nino killed Scotty's mom just to join a gang, right? Like, he's been a psychopath pretty much from the start, and he just needed an excuse and an outlet to really show it.
Somebody with like, a conscience would never do that.
Right. And so like his whole thing of like, oh, this city made me, I was forced to do it, whatever. It's just a bad excuse. Like, he's always just been a broken character and almost irredeemable from the start, almost like never had a chance, because he was just born this way.
Yep.
Whereas Scotty has a chance to fall into that and chooses not to do it. So I thought like the push-pull between those two characters was really good.
That'd be nice if they kind of drew that up with the dichotomy throughout the entire movie, because a lot of it kind of just feels like a formula. It's just like the plot points are like, this happens. But if there was like more parallels between those scenes, like the scenes we got with the choice of shooting somebody, a defenseless person on the ground, I would like 2 more minimum in the beginning, middle, and then that one at the end.
Yeah, I agree.
Then it would kind of carry a little bit more thematic juice, not to get meta about the juice. I see you have a man counter here.
Yeah, I didn't. Halfway through the movie, I wish I did. Sign of the Times, early 90s, they say man a lot. It's like, come on, man. Don't do that, man.
Like we say man a lot these days, though.
We do. It's just for some reason, I just halfway through the movie, there was one sentence where someone said man 3 times, and it just like ticked my ear, and then I couldn't not hear it.
Was it Ice-T? Like, who was the main culprit of throwing out the word?
Ice-T.
Okay. My thoughts on that is because Ice-T is not an actor, and a lot of the times Mario Van Peebles just said, hey, do your own thing, talk how you talk.
Yeah, but also people said it. Stone said it a lot.
Peeps,
like, you're busting my balls here, man. You're a loose cannon, man. You gotta follow the rules, man.
My final talking point here is let's not gloss over the fact that Nino beat a kid with a baseball bat, poured gasoline all over him, and then proceeded to light him on fire because he shorted him $5. You may have missed this, but this is that expository backstory from the random kid that tells Appleton. Kids. Yeah, the Stoop kids from the Stoop, where he tells Appleton and Peretti where they can find Nino, like where he lives. Like, it's just this like really random, like, because all the kids are not about it. They're like, hey, step off, man. Nino's a good guy. And then one of the kids says, they're 5-0, scram. And then they nab one kid. He's like, Ice-T's like, come here, you little punk. The kid is just like, Nino's a bad guy. He beat up a kid with a baseball bat and then poured gasoline on him and lit him on fire. Like a real snowball story, like it's fictional almost.
Yeah.
But I just don't want to gloss over the fact that Nino did that. He's a bad guy. He's a big piece of shit.
Kind of goes back to what I was saying. Like, from the start, he's just a psychopath. There's a few more things I want to bring up, just kind of quick hitters. One, the soundtrack in 1991 did hit number 1 on the U.S. R&B charts.
New Jack Swing, baby. Is that it?
No, there's two more things. Sorry. Yeah. Number 2, Barry Michael Cooper has a prequel and a sequel written for this movie, if anybody ever wants to pick it up. He has a prequel of the Nino Brown story, how he came to be. And then there is apparently a sequel to this as well. He didn't really give anything on that. But in 2019, Deadline announced that Warner Brothers would reboot the film with Malcolm Mays writing. We'll see if that ever happens.
I did hear that Wesley Snipes was not about that.
The last thing that I thought was crazy, that in 2022, they did a stage production adaptation of this.
Yes.
With Alan Payne reprising his role of G Money. Tretch from Naughty by Nature was Nino Brown.
Oh, that's cool.
Big Daddy Kane played Stone.
No way. How do you get tickets to this, man? That's another Juice callback, because remember Tretch, he auditioned for the role of Bishop, and then they ended up giving it to, of course, Tupac. And then Tretch ended up being an uncredited background actor as part of the Puerto Rican gang in that movie.
It had a nationwide tour from November 2022 to May 2023. So we just missed that. I know. If it comes back around, we'd have to go see New Jack City, the stage adaptation.
That's so
But I
sick.
thought that was worth bringing up. That's kind of cool.
That's so cool. All right. Well, if they continue the tour, Just Play It's going to be in the audience, baby. I'm going to wrap this talking points up with my sarcastic selling point. Are you ready, Nick?
I am ready.
This is the other guys on crack. No, I'm just kidding. This is Harlem Scarface told through a do the right thing style lens.
I like that. That's really good. I said we wrote a script for Wesley Snipes. It's an urban Bronx tale.
Final review. Fight.
Let's look at what the other guys are saying. Rotten Tomatoes, 80% of the critics thought that this was a good movie.
And surprisingly, the audience matches them. 80% from them as well.
80 to 80? I can't believe this.
80-80.
All right, time to get real. We're going to switch over to Metacritic here. This is the weighted average reviews of the critics. They're giving this a 61, which translates to a 6.1. Kind of lame compared to that 80.
Much lower. People giving it a 6.8. Still lower, but higher than the critics there.
And now, when the city is New Jack, but the drugs are too whack, you hit him with the $5 clapback on the Chris Rock crack track, you get a 6.6 score from IMDb. God damn, are we on crack on the same track at the same time? I don't know how we do this week after week. We are so in sync. Nice job.
It is insane. All right, James, I think it's my turn this week. What did you say? I hit you with my log line, followed by my popcorn points and final thoughts here.
I am ready.
Nino Brown, the king of crack, is running Harlem as a crime lord. But loose cannon cop Scotty Appleton has a score to settle with Nino. I gave this a 7.8. Super solid, respectable 7.8. So this is good. It's just good. Like, you don't have to justify it any way, shape, or form. Just right off the bat, this is good. It's entertaining and I think very well executed. I did have a few pacing issues with the movie at a few points. So we went through long spells of just seeing like the Scotty arc and then just the Pookie arc. And then we switch over to the Nino arc for 20 minutes and not see Scotty for a while. I thought the best part of the movie was the last 40-ish minutes when they're on screen together, interacting. We're kind of getting to see kind of the tenseness of Scotty being undercover. Like the first like hour of the movie for me wasn't like very tense. It was just storytelling, which was a good story. But I really liked that last 40, 45 when it got tense, when it was like started to get personal. I think Pookie's character development was sort of a crutch to the storyline. I didn't quite get a lot of that. Kind of like put him in rehab. Now we have him. Now he randomly gets back on crack. And like it was a good plot device.
Hashtag back on crack.
A little unnecessary. He added a little comic relief in there as well. I think the movie was cast perfectly. I thought the casting was great. I know it was first time roles for a lot of folks, a lot of unproven actors, but really, really came out well there. So hats off to the casting. Hats off to Barry Michael Cooper.
The Peebs.
Yeah, Peebs, Barry Michael Cooper for saying like, hey, we're writing this for specific people and we're going to make that work. I think that turns out well. You know, you're not trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. Highly entertaining, well acted. And I said it, just if I had to say one thing, I'd say it's a solid movie with the right amount of cliche for the time. There were a few moments where like Chris Rock's or Pookie's, rehab moment, he'd just be sitting there sweating and you get like a random guitar wail, like in the background, like just kind of that like late 80s, early 90s, like the perfect amount of like cliche and cheesiness.
Stuff that's like parody today.
Yeah, it was never enough to take me out of the movie. So I was totally fine with it. But 7.8, good movie. Enjoyed it. Would watch again. Would recommend. It's free on Tubi. If you haven't seen it, go see it.
Shout out Tubi. Let me hit you with my laughable log line, followed by my popcorn points, followed by my final thoughts on New Jack City. A crime lord in Harlem perpetuates crack cocaine through the community to gain money and power with a super efficiently ran crack operation that gets compromised by Chris Crack Rock Pookie in New Jack City. More like New Crack City. 7.6 popcorn points. So I think this movie brings up a lot of important themes. It shines light on a very tragic exploitation of low-income Americans. It's fresh. It's cool. There's a lot of Kangol hats and there's a lot of Uzis. I feel like this movie, for iconic as it is in hip-hop culture and the Black American experience, I think it just kind of falls a bit short with some of Ice-T's lack of acting experience at this point in his career. Because he was the most believable when he was just doing his own hustler thing. Like we touched upon, Mario Van Peebles brought this guy in because he was hilarious. He was from the streets and he brought the edge to the set. Whereas Wesley Snipes is just a good actor. And so it was cool to see that contrast, not only from the characters of their choices, but just the actors behind the scenes. Like Wesley Snipes is bringing true acting class to the set, and Ice-T is like, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm gonna try my best. And Ice-T's looking to Alan Payne and he says, hey Alan, like, I'm not an actor, dude, so if I'm fucking up, like, please let me know and just let me know how I can do better, because I want to do good, I just don't know what I'm doing. So he's approaching this acting job with a very humble and open-minded take on it, and he wants to do a good job. Another gripe I kind of have with this movie is if you're going to give us like that pity backstory of Nino, that he, I was forced into this life, I sold drugs when I was 12 years old, I think you got to bring that up earlier in the movie, or don't bring it up at all. Like, I don't want to hear that as he's testifying at the stand within the final 5 minutes of the movie, because now I'm like, oh, I now understand Nino's intentions and I know why he's in this. He's not a one-dimensional villain just doing this because it's bad. He was forced into this life, and I just felt like we got that too late. Too little, too late, in my opinion. So this movie is very recognizable from the title to the characters to the poster. However, I think the Achilles heel is that it's trying to be something else too much. Like the overt Scarface references, the copycat style of Do the Right Thing, cinematography and editing. New Jack City can't even really hold a candle to Do the Right Thing in those regards. Shout out Ernest R. Dickerson, who is a cinematographer of Do the Right Thing and the director of Juice. So there's a crux when you're inspired by other work, because I think you're just trying to emulate them too much that you just end up redoing it at a certain point when you don't need to. You kind of need to just do your own thing. The best parts are just Wesley Snipes playing the character of Nino and the humanizing of the terrible effects of the crack epidemic. Like, those are the best parts of this movie. Like, I don't need cut the wire, like the bombs counting down to one, like the slow motion shootouts, the no screams. I get that all the time on network television. I don't need it here. Please stick with your unique voice and tell me a compelling story and highlight this insane topic that our country went through in this decade. So while we don't rate movies based on their cult status or iconic status, we rate them for what they are. This movie is very iconic. It's very famous. It's revered in Black America culture and hip hop culture. I think it's awesome for that reason. However, I'm not going to do that here. It's a 7.6, which translates to a good microwave bag of popcorn for me. Captain Crack over here.
That's back-to-back weeks, James, where we are within 2.2 points of each other. We're vibing here. a little bit.
That's crazy.
2 good movies.
Yeah, for me, this is sandwiched right between Mad Max Road Warrior and Angel Heart.
Yeah, I think that's a great place for it to be.
Kind of right in that realm, you know. It's a great movie. You should see it.
It's a great movie, and I feel like it's a movie that if you're even our age, early to mid 30s, it's maybe not a movie that would have crossed your path. You know, you may recognize the name, but I feel like it never got the status of like a must watch. So I'm glad we took the time to watch it, and I would definitely encourage others to watch it as well.
And I'm happy it wasn't What Dreams May Come. All right.
Ooh.
That is our review of New Jack City. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you want more, please follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Just Play It Podcast. Please follow us on X, Gon' Give It To You, formerly known as Twitter, at Just Play It Pod. We're going to be heading gone, but you should check us out next week because we're going to be watching a movie that is kind of similar to the movie we watched last week of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
But kind of not. But it stars somebody, or it has somebody in it who I think was up for a role in Raiders of the Lost Ark, who we mentioned last week. So there's a hint.
We got hints on hints on hints. So and it's also going to be Valentine's Day. So that's your last hint. Put all those pieces together and remember, if that crack is calling your name and the juice is in the game, you better remember the name and just say no to crack because that shit is whack.
You know, have some turkey, have some crack.
He marries himself to crack behind a fish tank.